Greetings, everyone. This is John Kountouris, and welcome to my show, Greek News on Demand. Greek News on Demand. Today it is July 21st, 2016. The time is 8:08 p.m. Los Angeles time, Pacific Standard Time. Today we have a lot of issues to cover concerning, of course, Greece, because this show covers all things Greek. And we also have a lot of issues to cover with regards to the recent coup that took place in Turkey. And we're going to discuss basically, or rather I'm going to monologue, as to whether this was a real coup or not. As to whether Erdogan, the president of Turkey, was really under attack by a group of rogue colonels or not. We're going to analyze everything today. And basically, what I'm going to attempt to do is open your minds and give you the best information as to what really went on. And why are we covering Turkey? Well, as you all may remember, Greece and Turkey go way back. We're talking about thousands of years practically. So hold on tight. I hope you enjoy this show. This is John Kountouris, Greek News on Demand. This show is based on my website, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. That's one word, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. And we provide the best news in both Greek and in English about Greece and, of course, all issues related to it. So, stand by. Okay, again, our website is GreekNewsOnDemand.com. If you go to our website, the first thing you're going to see is basically the big banner, GreekNewsOnDemand.com. That's in English. Now, we primarily publish in Greek. But as you go through our news feed, you're going to see there's a lot of English articles. If you go to the top black menu bar, you're going to see a bunch of options. One of them is English articles. Click on that, and basically it's going to take you to a huge feed of English articles that we post on a regular basis every day. So a few of the items that basically we have right now are the top item, Young Turks flip out on Alex Jones. Young Turks flip out on Alex Jones. Now, Greek News on Demand is not really a fan of Alex Jones for many different reasons, which many of my listeners already may know. So I won't really get into that. But what I am getting into is news. And the reason why I'm getting into this news is because Alex Jones, basically at the Republican National Convention in Ohio, today, just let's say about 3 hours ago, had a big spat basically with the producer and the host of the show Young Turks. So the Young Turks is an American political commentary web series hosted by Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian. Its stance is liberal, progressive, left-wing. It began as a radio program back in 2002 on Sirius Satellite Radio and later on Air America before airing in 2005 on YouTube and later on Roku and Hulu. So basically it has spawned two spin-off television series. Current TV's The Young Turks with Cenk Uygur and Fusion's up-and-coming series, which started this year, 2016. It has also spawned a multi-channel network of associated web series known as the TYV network, A documentary was produced about the Young Turks entitled Mad as Hell in 2014. So we're talking about an up-and-coming cable show that is now basically going mainstream and is competing with alternative news networks like Infowars.com with Alex Jones, etc. So basically, we have the video evidence today that shows how the producer of this show, the Young Turks, invited Alex Jones onto their stage while they were doing a live broadcast to basically greet the host, Cenk Uygur. And apparently it was a setup because, according to Alex Jones, basically they wanted to set up Alex Jones and make him look bad on air. So it all ended up into a shouting match. One of the producers called Alex Jones a fat, F-U-C-K, and cussed him out and said, "Get the hell off our stage." And he's like, "Well, you guys invited me on here. Why are you telling me now to leave?" And basically, the host actually got up into Alex Jones's face and was about to duke it out with him, basically, because Alex Jones said that they were funded by George Soros and support the Saudis and all this mumbo jumbo. Of course, Alex Jones is known for going off on his little tantrums about the Saudis. And, of course, he forgets to tell us that the whole Saudi elite are Jewish in origin, because the Saud family was originally a Jewish family from Iraq that migrated to Arabia, and they eventually became Saudi Arabia because the British gave them that land about 200 years ago, roughly. It's a long story, but it all had to do with divide and conquer at that time, because the Rothschilds and the King of England needed the Sauds to basically divide the Middle East for them. And that's exactly what they did for them, for divide and conquer. Now, the reason I'm even mentioning this, again, is because this made big news headlines. Alex Jones, of course, is up and coming. It said he surpassed CNN in views, and he's approaching Fox News in views. I guess that's cumulatively with all the radio networks he's on and TV and et cetera, et cetera. But the real reason why I want to talk about this is because basically some people, that produce for his show, some very smart individuals, they pointed out some really good things about the Young Turks. So I'm just going to play a quick clip where Alex Jones basically comes out and does a Facebook mentions right away and talks about the incident, how the Young Turks went wild on him, and they had first invited him onto the stage, and then they went crazy on him. They accused him of all these things, and he, of course, fired back at them. And it just ended up in a big shouting match, which almost ended up in an actual brawl, literally. So the reason why I'm talking about this again is because it mentions the Young Turks. Why are the Young Turks important? Well, to me, they're not. Because the fact that they chose the name the Young Turks says a lot about them. Who are the Young Turks? If you don't know who the Young Turks were, basically you need to find out. And the best way that you can find that out is reading my book, Hellenic Crisis. So the Young Turks, according to my research in my book, were a secular movement created at the turn of the century, roughly. And, of course, it was meant to overthrow the old Sultanate of the Ottoman Empire. But this group was nothing more than a sort of coup created by the very powerful Zionists and Freemasons in order to basically bring in a new era into Turkey. And one of their main men to do it was Kemal Ataturk. So according to the Jewish online publication, tablemag.com, and I'm going to refer now to an actual top Jewish publication, in their 2010 article, The Other Secret Jews, they make the link between the secret Jewish sect of the Donme in Turkey with the infamous radical reformist movement in Turkey at the turn of the century known as the Young Turks, who participate in the genocides of Greeks and Armenians. The article states that several Donme were leading members of the Committee for Union and Progress, the revolutionary party known as the Young Turks, who in 1908 forced the Sultan to grant a constitution. This statement alone by a well-known Jewish publication demonstrates the honesty of Jews out there who know the truth about the radical reformist Young Turks who were themselves Jews. Now, you can look this up on their website, tablemag.com, and the title is The Other Secret Jews. A new book explores the rich history of Turkey's Donme Sephardic Jews who converted to Islam in the 1600s. Of course, what the article failed to mention were the crimes of these crypto Jews, as the Jewish writer of this article calls them, particularly by one of their members, by the name of Kemal Ataturk. You see, Kemal was a Jew, a crypto Jew, and he murdered untold numbers of Greeks and Armenians. But there are international publications from that era that mention the fact that Kemal Ataturk was Jewish in origin. Back in 1994, there was a top Jewish publication. I believe it was called the Jewish Journal, if I recall right, that basically said that they had discovered old archives of an old Israeli or actual Jewish newspaper from the 19-teens. And, that was published in Palestine at that time. And these archives contained a 1914 interview between Kemal Ataturk before he rose to power and this Jewish newspaper. And in this Jewish newspaper, Kemal Ataturk straight out says, "I'm Jewish." He says, I'm actually a descendant of the Messiah of the Jews, Sabbatai Zevi, or you can say Zevi, who, by the way, in 1666, notice the date here, 1666, stood up in the midst of his brethren somewhere in Turkey and declared that he was the Messiah of the Jews. And since then, his form of radical satanic Judaism has really sort of permeated all of Judaism today. Of course, after him came, other radical Jewish leaders, and of course, you had Marx, you had Engels on the banking end of things. You had the Rothschilds. All these guys came from the same Jewish ideological school of thought, and of course, Sabbatai Zevi was the guy to do it. He was the guy that really was the creator, the designer before all this. And of course, this was way before any type of Zionist movement came onto the scene. And not only that, even way, way before him, hundreds and hundreds of years before him, the Jews were a very much despised and hated people, and they were kicked out basically hundreds of times from cities all over Europe, actually officially from, let's say, it was the 4th century to the turn of the century. As a people, as a whole, the Jews were kicked out 109 times from various European countries all over Europe, basically. So that's spanning a period of basically over 1,500 years, and that's all on record. As we all know, they were kicked out of England in 1290 and stayed out for at least 300 years. And then, of course, it was Oliver Cromwell who brought them back, and he had made a agreement with King Henry VIII and so on and so forth. And you guys know the story. But, of course, that angle of the story is not told the way it should be, particularly today in public schools and in academia, etc., etc. So, if you read the book by Professor Marjorie Housepian Dobkin with the title Smyrna 1922, The Destruction of a City, you're going to find out some pretty freakish things that she states in this book on Kemal Ataturk and who he really worked for and just what a criminal he was. In the online review of her book, we read the following about Kemal Ataturk. In September 1922, Mustafa Kemal, the revolutionary ruler of Turkey, led his troops into Smyrna, which is a very ancient Greek city, by the way. It dates back to ancient Greece, now called Izmir today, which at the time, in 1922, was a predominantly Christian city. While a flotilla of 27 Allied warships, including 3 American destroyers, looked on, the Turks indulged in an orgy of pillage, rape, and slaughter, which the Western powers condoned. Eager to to protect their own oil and trade interests in Turkey. That sounds familiar. Where have I heard this kind of stuff before? Through their silence and by the refusal to intervene. So in other words, Smyrna is basically getting raped and pillaged by the Turks. Okay? We're talking about Greeks, we're talking about Armenians and other Christian populations. This city had the biggest concentration of wealth in the whole world at this time. So the United States and Great Britain and their allies had major trade and oil interests in Smyrna. So they made a deal with the Turks. They said, we're going to allow you to basically get rid of these Christian populations, particularly Greeks and Armenians, if you allow us basically to make trade and oil agreements with you. This is back in the 1920s. So the deal was made, and the Turks started their pogroms, and they went on their vicious, evil melees, and of course, according to tons of newspaper publications from top newspapers around the world, the Western powers just sat there and did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. Nothing's changed today, folks, with all the evil that we see going on in the world today, with all the wars being waged, particularly, let's say, for example, in Syria. So, let's continue with this excerpt. Turkish forces then set fire to the legendary city and totally destroyed it. A massive cover-up followed by tacit agreement of the Western Allies, who had defeated Turkey and Germany during World War I. By 1923, Smyrna's demise was all but expunged from historical memory. By 1923, are you listening to this? In other words, barely a year later, and the Western powers and the Western media were told to basically hush all of this up. This is just unbelievable. For more on Ataturk's Jewish background, the following quotation is from the book The Secret Jews, authored by Dr. Joachim Prinz. Prinz is spelled Prinz. And he says, the revolt of the Young Turks in 1908 against the authoritarian regime of the Sultan Abdul Hamid began among the intellectuals of Salonika. Salonika is the second biggest city in Greece. You can also call it Thessaloniki in Greek, Thessaloniki, but in English you can call it Salonika. It was from there that the demand for a constitutional regime originated. Among the leaders of the revolution, which resulted in a more modern government in Turkey, were Davjid Bey and Mustafa Kemal. In other words, Kemal Ataturk. Both were ardent Domes. Domes were basically a crypto-Jewish sect that posed as Muslims. Davjid Bey became Minister of Finance. Mustafa Kemal became the leader of the new regime, and he adopted the name of Ataturk. His opponents tried to use his Dome background to unseat him because they knew who he was. In other words, he was a crypto-Jew. But without success. Too many of the Young Turks in the newly formed revolutionary cabinet prayed to Allah, but had as their real prophet Shabbatai Zavi, the Messiah of Smyrna. And you can find this, again, in the book The Secret Jews by Dr. Joachim Prinz, published by Random House in 1973, and that was page 122 of that book. Now, it's not just this guy who's written about this, but so many other authors out there, Greek authors, Turkish authors. I mean, there's so much evidence out there to prove all this. So, this begs the question, what in the hell is this TV show, The Young Turks, using this title or this name for their broadcast? What do they want to do? Awake memories of the slaughters and the pogroms that the Turks did against the Greeks and Armenians back almost 100 years ago, basically? Is that what they want to do? Why would they choose such an evil name for their broadcast when in reality the Young Turks, and there's a plethora of evidence out there, were crypto-Jews, and they went around killing Christians left and right. It wasn't just in Smyrna. They went on pogroms from like 1915 to 1925 against Armenians and Greeks and other Christian populations. So, why would they choose such a name for their show, The Young Turks? That to me is a total insult and slap in the face of Greeks and Armenians and Christians in general, and it should not be tolerated. And unfortunately, the evidence now is coming out and showing that basically these people are tied in with George Soros, and of course they are, funded and controlled programming for the masses. And I think the reason why they were allowed to choose that name, Young Turks, is to continually rub it in the face of Greeks and Armenians and Christians that basically these ancient Christian cultures are done with. And if you've read my books, and if you've heard my story, you would understand that the whole goal of the New World Order was to do away with Christianity, was to do away with the Greek Byzantine Empire, which ruled the world for over 1,000 years and maintain a moral preserving force in this world. And the whole onset of the actual New World Order started with the fall of the Greek Byzantine Empire in 1453 to the Ottoman Turks, who were aided by the very powerful Jewish families from the black nobility of Venice. That's all on historical record. But we don't stop there, though, with the Young Turks. It's a historical fact that Ataturk had strong ties with the Jewish Bolshevik leaders in Russia. Also, the fact that Lenin and Trotsky were both Jews has been known for decades, but the Jewish-controlled media and educational systems have tried to hush this up to the Western world. If you go to Brother Nathaniel Kapner's website, realjewnews.com, you'll find the following article. Jewish Young Turks were murderers. And he lists the following on a timeline of Young Turk activities, who are also called, of course, the Donmei, who are from the Jewish, the crypto-Jewish sect, the Donmei, that again poses as Muslims. So we read, Jewish Bolsheviks supply the Young Turks with weapons, basically during the onset of their campaign. In 1920, the Russian Jewish Bolsheviks supply Ataturk with 10 million gold rubles, 45,000 rifles, and 300 machine guns. In 1921, Ataturk occupies the port of Baku, ceding it to the Jewish Bolsheviks 5 days later. The Rothschilds get wind of this and are delighted, as they now have their Baku oil company in Jewish Bolshevik territory. Baku is spelled B-A-K-U. You can research that. B-A-K-U, the Baku Oil Company. Now, we already talked about Smyrna, and there's so many other sources that basically, I can give to you on this. But the real issue here is this. These genocides have not been recognized at all by the U.S. government. And, of course, the United States, being the superpower that it is, and the policer of all the nations of the world and the supposed beacon of democracy and freedom, has yet to make a decision to recognize the Greek and Armenian genocides. Gee, why is that? Well, I'll tell you why that is. The reason being is because there's a certain tribe of folk out there who actually have a monopoly on genocides and quote-unquote holocausts. I think you all know who I'm talking about by now, and that is none other than the chosen quote-unquote people of God, the Jews. So, is it any wonder that every time the Armenians and the Greeks try to raise this issue in Congress, through their lobby groups and organizations and things of that sort, that this effort of theirs is shot down in Congress Happens every time. The last time they tried something, I think it was about 5-6 months ago, roughly, and of course the usual suspects shoot it down, including Nancy Pelosi, whose mother is Jewish. Now, why is it that supposed people that supposedly suffered under the horrific atrocities of the Nazis, quote unquote, why is it that they would not want to sympathize with other peoples that suffered? Well, that's because it's a big paradox here. And the paradox goes as following. In reality, the Jews were never holocausted by the Nazis. That's a farce. And all the records have come out, and I'm not going to get into all the details, but, I mean, if you look at the Red Cross's records from 1945 when they went into Auschwitz and all these camps, there was only like not even 200,000 people that had died, and they weren't all Jews. There was many other peoples that were included. And they said they died from starvation and typhoid and things like that. Now, we know about the Holocaust industry. Let's not get into that. And we know about the big fraud, the big progenitor and propagator of this myth, Elie Wiesel, the Romanian Jew hired by World Jewry to begin propagating all this back in the 80s. And up until that time, really, the Holocaust was not a big deal in America, but he had the job of making it a big deal, and that's why today it's a big deal everywhere you frickin' go in the society. I mean, there's a statistic that says one out of every 5 Hollywood movies makes a reference to the Holocaust, whether it has to do with the Holocaust or not. Give me a break. So basically, why is it that they don't want the Armenian and Greek genocides to be recognized? I'm talking about the Jews. That is because they hold a monopoly, like I said before. Okay? They only want to act like they suffered. But it's not really even that. It's because of this paradox I'm talking about. It's because, in reality, it wasn't them that were genocided or holocausted. It was the Christians. Christian populations all over Europe, Ukrainians, Russians, Greeks, Armenians, Poles, that were killed from about the turn of the century on up into World War II and on into communist Eastern Europe. And not only that, it was also the Jews themselves who committed these atrocities against these Christian populations. There is a video out there done by Dr. David Duke that talks about a infamous Soviet Gulag camp commander by the name of Yagoda, I believe his name is. I can't remember his exact name. And this gentleman, if you look at him, I kid you not, he looks just like Hitler. He's got the whole look. He's got the same eyes, the same nose. He's got the little chopped off mustache. I mean, I swear to you, he looks just like Hitler. But in reality, it's not Hitler. It's Yagoda. And he also happened to be the biggest 20th century murderer ever. He killed millions of Russian Christians and also other populations in the Gulag camps in Jewish Bolshevik-controlled Russia. Now, the Jews were also killing people, as I said before, in Turkey with the Young Turks. The Jews were killing people everywhere in Europe during this period. Do you realize what I am telling you right now? I mean, I really want this to sink in. The paradox is that it wasn't the Jews being persecuted during this era. It was the Christians, and the Jews were behind this with the support of Washington and, of course, their allies. This is the sad fact, and this is what they don't want you to know. Yes, it is true, black is white, and white is black here. And until people really start gripping with reality that these people have perverted our reality, that they have inverted everything, that they have told us that black is white and white is black, Until we really understand this false paradigm that's going on, until we understand that there's no such thing as Democrat and Republican, because they all are the same in the end of the day. I mean, Republicans act more like Democrats today than Democrats. Until we understand this whole game that they're playing with us, we're not going to understand anything that's going on in this world. So, if you really want to understand anything, understand this. Anytime you turn on the TV and you hear, oh my God, there was just this terrorist attack in Nice, France, and 80 people were plowed down with a bus. And this is just horrific. And we believe it was ISIS, but we're not sure. There's reports that it might have been them, etc., etc., etc. Okay? The moment you start hearing all that mumbo-jumbo, all you have to do is this. Turn on your brain, and I know I need to turn mine on too, because I get caught up with all the motion, and begin to think for yourself. Gee, did 80 people really get plowed down by a bus? Let's look at the facts. Well, did the media show us basically the atrocities? Yeah, they did. There was this video that someone shot with a cell phone camera. Well, has anyone ever actually looked at this video? Gee, I did. And you know what it shows in that video? It shows the following. It shows people on the ground walking around, not in a state of emergency or panic. They're just casually walking around, looking at their cell phones, wondering what just happened, and they see some objects on the ground. They look like dead bodies with blood coming out of it. Well, if you look a little bit closer at these supposed dead bodies, here's what you see. You see a guy with a disjointed leg whose shoes were blown off from the bus impact, as well as his shirt. Gee, that's interesting. If you look a little closer, if you zoom in, you also notice that the guy's nipples were blown off. What? Yeah, you heard it right. His nipples were blown off. He doesn't have any nipples. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even have a navel or a belly button. Imagine that. Anyway, to make a long story short, we really have to start understanding that, they wage war on us by deception. That is the actual Israeli Mossad's motto. They're out there, I'm talking about the New World Order, to pervert our reality and to tell us a version of basically reality that in reality is not reality. It's their reality, not our reality. And this is the reason why the world is in the situation that it is in. And we're told, of course, not to think for ourselves and question, because if you do, guess what? Homeland Security says you're a terrorist. It's this type of thinking and servile subservitude that has basically screwed us all up and put us in the situation that it's in. And we all have to admit that the fact that we've basically been brainwashed into believing this way and submitting this way is nothing more than treason, both to ourselves and to our country. Because this is not America, and this is not the way a free world should operate. We're selling ourselves short. So we need to wake up here. And again, going back to the issue of basically the Young Turks and the genocides and this and that, the reality is it was the Jews killing people. As a matter of fact, they've been doing this for centuries and centuries, but this has all been hidden. This has all basically been covered up. And of course, these people continue what they're doing today in the legal system, in the medical profession, with their pharmaceuticals, with their system of allopathic medicine, which is basically killing people for profit. And of course, the list goes on. So, are we going to embrace reality? Or are we going to continue to allow them to manipulate our reality to the detriment of all of us? This is really what's going on. So, the reason why I said all this is because the Young Turks chose this name. But it's not just that. There are reports, like I said, that George Soros is behind them. And right now we have fireworks going off in my neighborhood. And it's literally days after 4th of July. I don't know why this is going on right now, but anyway, we have a little fireworks here going on for your entertainment. So there are also reports that Erdogan himself likes this show and actually supports it somehow. Isn't that interesting? So the Young Turks have a direct ties to Turkey. Well, the actual host of the show that I mentioned, he was actually born in Turkey, and apparently he has ties with the Turkish government, from what I understand and from what I'm reading. This is unbelievable, to say the least. Now, let me just play a quick clip of Alex Jones. And I know some of you out there really don't know the truth about him, but a lot of us do, and we can't stomach him for obvious reasons. But we're going to play this because there are some key things that he said here. So let's just listen really quick.
They are taking it down because they're God. This bully gets up and they go, hey, get out of here. He's going to physically attack you. It's all on video. They spit on me. They spit on my camera guy. They set us up. And then now they don't want anybody to see what they've done, and they're destroying my free speech. Milo just got banned on Instagram, posting a photo with me. He's been life banned on Twitter. They're making their move. There's a coup at Fox News. This is a coup, folks. They're getting ready to steal the election. Okay? I'm here. I've been doing this 21 years. I've never seen anything like this. They're like, oh, why don't you go up on stage and say hi? Been on, oh, yeah, bro. They grab the mic, freak out, start spitting on us. And people ask, why are you on Facebook? Why are you on Twitter? Why are you on YouTube? Because they censor one at a time. But the Young Turks made a multi-million-dollar deal with YouTube. They're involved, and it's basically an illegal hack. And let me tell you something. I'm not playing games, man. I'm going to take legal action. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. That they set us up. Their people said, go up there on stage. I'm like, hey, how's it going, buddy? Blah, blah, blah. They totally blow up. They totally go crazy. And then now they're going through our videos, removing them. They work with Google that owns YouTube. I don't know if it's the Young Turks or who it is. They are shutting down the Alex Jones channel with its 1 billion views and its 1.5 million subscribers, which is just one thing. Here's the good news, guys. I'm on over 170 radio stations, and I'm on all over the place.
So basically the issue here is that YouTube funds the Young Turks. They made a multi-billion-dollar deal with them. And there's so much other stuff out there, but there was a huge confrontation today between Alex Jones and these people, and it was just utterly freaking ridiculous. So let's listen to the YouTube clip from the Young Turks channel when Alex Jones was invited by them on stage. And it's a much more clearer clip than all the YouTube clips that have been played. So let's just listen to some of this nonsense so we can laugh and so we can actually analyze the Young Turks, because they are a organization or a show that is very, very dubious, especially in the light of all these new revelations.
All right, we're back on the Young Turks. Obviously, a little bit of commotion here. Is Alex Jones and a guy significantly worse than him entered the stage here.
What changes in demographics is that he wins white males in such overwhelming numbers that it overcomes every other demographic advantage Hillary has.
Come sit in your lap.
How's it going? Hey, Alex Jones, how you doing?
Good to see you, man. You're looking sexy.
All right.
Hey, how's the revolution going? You guys starting the revolution?
We are indeed, Alex. The revolution is afoot. Welcome to the Young Turks.
You know what's wrong with America is not?
I am going to restore American democracy along with progressives and conservatives in this country.
All right, well, I got to tell you, I'm really, really proud to be here with you. It's good to meet you in person.
I don't think
How are you guys doing?
we're doing okay.
You like all our Hillary for Prison shirts everywhere?
No, I kind of despise it.
What shirts are they? I haven't seen any of them.
You haven't seen, oh my God, you didn't see me? I don't exist if you didn't see me.
I'm not.
All right, guys. Okay.
Look at this. I got a new shirt for you right here. It's rape. It's Bill Clinton that says rape. Oh God, hide that immediately. That's the big no. The Roger Stone's band.
All right, you want to take my show over? I'll take your show
Sure,
over.
go ahead.
Okay, you know what? Who does this kind of shirt? First of all, a sick guy. Second of all,
Bill Clinton's not a rapist, folks.
No, you know who's accused in court papers.
Come on.
You know who's accused in court papers of being a rapist? Donald J. Trump. By Donald Trump, Roger Stone. You know that. It's in court papers.
Oh, yeah?
You're a sick dude, Roger Stone.
I want to have a rant off with you right now.
You assault me all the time. You never give me a chance to finish.
Yeah,
I should give you a hatchet job. A job
Hold
to
there,
respond.
hold there, Mike.
You're a
Come on.
sick man, Roger Stone.
Roger,
No,
get in
you're
here.
the world's
Well,
biggest liar.
Get him
Didn't you admit that you lied about Elliot Smith, sir? Didn't you already admit that?
You're not afraid of him, are you? You're not afraid of him. Give me a minute.
First of all, Alex, this ain't our fucking show.
I don't know.
Okay? And Roger, it surely ain't your fucking show.
Are you afraid to debate him?
Afraid? Are you kidding me? No.
So basically, what you heard there was the first confrontation between Alex Jones and the Young Turks. And, they're both sort of a joke. But at first I thought, hey, this is staged, but it really wasn't, because they got really confrontational with each other afterwards. Alex Jones pretty much maintained his cool, but it was the Young Turks that were cussing at him and got sort of up in his face and very sort of aggressive. So you're going to see that now on YouTube and so on and so forth. But like I said, Alex Jones, after that, he began to talk about the Young Turks, and he's like, why did the Young Turks even choose this name? What are they trying to do? Remind us of the Young Turks who butchered and slaughtered the Christian populations. So that was something good that he said. But as you know, Alex Jones does not expose the Jewish Zionist conspiracy the way he should. And that's because he himself is tied in with Jewish interests. That's another huge issue, which I can cover in another broadcast, I would say. But let's stick with the issue here at hand. So, what I like to do now is for us to spill over to the actual coup in Turkey. And I want us to listen to an interview from Press TV that took place a few days ago by a gentleman who writes for Veterans Today. He is an actual very, very good writer and scholar, from what I understand. But he actually gave a very, very good point of view on actually how this whole coup played out. His name is Stefan Lendeman, Lendman. He's Jewish. He's from Chicago. But apparently he is a very good writer and anti-New World Order guy. And he writes for Veterans Today. If you don't know Veterans Today, that is a website where it's one of the biggest alternative news websites out there, and it's owned and run by Gordon Duff, who's like this former Army and CIA guy. He's a veteran. He used to work for the CIA. He's also a filthy rich investor. He's also Jewish. But he's controversial in the 9/11 truth movement. Some people like him. Some people don't like him. Most of his reporting, though, is very, very good. His writers, like Kevin Barrett, are very good. They expose the Zionist Jewish control of America, and they do a pretty good job. So I'm going to let you listen, though, to Stephen Liedman talk about Turkey's failed coup attempt. And the reason being is because there's not enough good people out there, experts, who can really speak to this subject to help elucidate what actually went on. So I'm going to give my take after this. So let's listen.
I think a lot about John Kerry and what he is saying to Erdogan, the leader of Turkey, and other Turkish officials. Kerry, on the one hand, is saying, respect the law and treat the people that you're arresting and detaining judiciously, and so on and so forth. And, of course, on the one hand, America does the opposite with the people it detains, and nearly always political prisoners when it comes to geopolitical issues. And for America to be telling Turkey or any other country how it should behave with its detainees, it's like a serial killer asking a petty thief to please obey the law, something on that order. But I was as surprised, I guess, as most other people on Friday when I awoke to learn that either a coup or something else had gone on in Turkey. My first reaction was it was a CIA staged attempt to overthrow the Erdogan government and install a leader America could handle a little bit more easily. Obama and Erdogan have strained relations, just the way Obama and Netanyahu and Israel have strained relations. and it's come out some weeks, even a few months ago, that the Obama administration supplied funding to an organization to do PR work to get Netanyahu defeated when he ran for re-election in last March. And of course, he won. It was a surprise. He wasn't expected to win, but he did win. But, well, all Israeli governments are coalition governments. He didn't win a majority. So here we have Turkey. What's going on in Turkey? Was it a CIA plot, or was it a false flag? Just what was it? And I really thought it was a CIA plot. And then I started looking at what's been going on. The thing that startled me the most, two things that startled me the most was coups are usually planned by a small group of people acting very secretly, skilled people with the support of the military, executing what they intend to do very expertly. And the people involved in the so-called coup against tyranny looked like a gang that couldn't shoot straight. I call what happened more a tempest in a teapot than a coup, if it was a coup. So that on the one hand. On the other hand, Erdogan, the president of Turkey, was on vacation in Turkey, and supposedly he was heading home. He admitted, he said, true or otherwise, that he knew about what was to take place hours before it happened. I think that's one of the few truthful things he ever says. I think he did know about it in advance. Now, whether it was a plot that he decided to go along with, or a coup or a false flag, it's really much one and the same, because if something nefarious is going on to do you ill, and you play along with it because for whatever reason you may have, in his case, it would be to roust out the opposition forces, elements to his regime, so he can arrest them, put them in prison, try them, or maybe just kill them, whatever he wants to do. But the thing that startled me the most, besides all of this and more facts in an article I wrote this morning, was on his way back to Istanbul from the resort he was at, he was tailed by two rebel pilots manning F-16 fighters, lethal warships. They targeted his plane on their radar, meaning a click of the finger, and they could have brought him down and killed him. So the question I ask, if it was a real coup, the best way to succeed in instituting a coup is to cut off the head of its leader, kill Erdogan, and you certainly have a chance of succeeding in what you want to do, provided you get the military backing you, provided you get somebody of some leadership qualities ready to step in and take his place. I'm not certain. Well, he certainly didn't have the backing of the majority of the military, and I have no idea if they had a leader in mind to replace Erdogan. But if they could have shot down his plane, which if I were planning a coup, that's the first thing I would want to do. I would want to get rid of him and then do everything else. So what they should have done, they didn't do, and they did other things that didn't work. So my feeling is this wasn't the CIA plot. It was a false flag, and Erdogan is taking full advantage of it. The latest I saw is around 20,000 people from Friday to Tuesday have either been arrested or removed from their offices, physicians, civil servants, people like that, military people, 6,000 military personnel, hundreds of civilians, hundreds of police, hundreds of civil servants, but the number and people and judges, over 600 judges, over 20,000. These people were targeted in advance. It's the only way they could have gone after it, and an operation was already set up to be instituted the moment Erdogan gave the signal to go ahead and do it. Otherwise, you could never arrest or eliminate or do whatever you want to do to 20,000 people in 72 hours. I mean, it would take a week or two probably, maybe a month to do that kind of stuff. But they already had their targets in mind, and they did it. Well, one more thing important. WikiLeaks today, and maybe in succeeding days, will release thousands of documents on the Erdogan regime, material directly leading up to the events of last Friday. We don't know what's in them until they're released, but it's possible the information they'll release will indicate one way or another whether a coup really took place or whether it was a false flag. And I eagerly look forward to, I'm not going to read 30,000 pages, That's what they have, supposedly. I think even more than that. And they may release it in tranches. But it could be that they will decide one way or another whether this was a coup or a false flag. And my guess, based on what I know, it was a false flag.
So basically, Stefan Lendman, who writes for Veterans Today, he told it like it is. He's a very, very intellectual Jewish man, writer, and I respect him and his opinion. And I think he did an excellent job analyzing everything because, I mean, the fact that Erdogan was able to mobilize this huge network of police and military immediately to arrest not only the guys who did the coup, but also judges, attorneys, and all these other people. We're talking about thousands of people that are apparently against him within such a short amount of time. That tells you right then and there, according to Stefan Lendman, that he already had the apparatus in place in order to do this. So that, to me, is the most logical explanation. I do get a lot of information from Greek intelligence about what's going on. Like, for example, the day that the coup was taking place, I was being informed every minute by Greek intelligence about what was going on and how basically these commandos had raided the hotel where Erdogan was staying, basically in the Marmaris area, which is sort of like 20-plus nautical miles opposite of the Greek island of Rhodes, and how basically these commandos went to go kill him in his hotel and this and that and blah, blah, blah. So I was hearing all of that, all the details up to date. But, I mean, if you really analyze what's going on like Stefan Lendman did, and you see that, you know, Erdogan, as he's leaving his hotel to escape from these guys, apparently, he's being tailed by 2 F-16s and 2 warboats, lethal warships, and how they could have pulled the trigger at any moment to get rid of him, but they didn't. Obviously, this tells you that this whole thing was indeed staged. And it's not just this guy, it's many people across Europe that are saying this. I mean, the European news is totally exposing all this. Europeans all over Europe, from what we're hearing from polls, from newscasts, from social media, they say that it was Erdogan that did it. And I think it was the Italians the other day who had mocked him, saying basically, if you're a wannabe sultan and you're in need basically of help in pulling your country together, call 1-800-DO-A-COUP. 1-800-DO-A-COUP now. Blah, blah, blah. So it was sort of a funny thing that was going around on social media about Erdogan from the Italians. So the reason why I'm talking about all this, again, is because the Turks and the Greeks go way back. The Turks and the Greeks are basically two people that have had major dealings over the centuries. And today, what's happening in Turkey is having a direct effect on Greece. For example, when the coup took place, there were Turks that escaped from Greece, Turks from the Turkish army. So there was a Black Hawk helicopter, apparently, that when the coup had broken out, was aiding victims and flying them to hospitals. And they had nothing to do with the coup. But, you know, they had to do something because there was people being shot on the ground and they were literally being mutilated by, you know, the war that had basically taken place, the Civil War. So, all of a sudden, at one point during the coup, these guys realize that they're now being labeled by the Turkish government as participating in the coup, when in reality, according to them, they weren't. So they freak out, and they decide to just take off. They decide to escape Turkey, and they fly into Greece, and they seek asylum. And right now, these guys are begging the Greek government to grant them asylum. They just had a court case today, and it was decided that basically they're going to be sentenced to 2 years of probation and at least 2 months in prison and 2 years probation. So it's become a huge issue because, you know, Erdogan is demanding from Greece that they be extradited to Turkey to stand trial. But everyone knows Erdogan wants to kill them just like he wants to now kill all of his political opponents, and he's saying this out loud in public. He has no shame, this guy. He wants to reinstitute the death penalty in Turkey, which was abolished back in, of course, 2004. If you recall, I don't know if you remember, but it was in 2004 that Turkey was forced to do that in order to basically fulfill the requirements, the entry requirements into the EU. Well, it's been, 12 years since then, and Turkey has still not been invited to join the EU. Turkey is part of NATO and things of that sort. But, they still haven't joined the EU, and they still want to. But now the EU and, of course, all the EU member nations are like, we don't want this vicious, psycho, sultan killer part of our EU, because he wants to basically kill all his political opponents. And that's not very democratic of him. So this is what's going on. And right now Erdogan and his officials are getting a little feisty with Greece. There are reports that Erdogan might actually attempt to launch an attack on Greece because Greece will not cooperate with him in this. Don't hold it past them, because the Turks have been very provocative towards Greece in recent decades. They've tried to start war with us, but Greece has had to remain calm for obvious reasons, because if we do go to war, it's going to be a huge mess. And, Turkey has one of the biggest militaries in Europe, and the Greek military is not that strong as it used to be. So, unfortunately, we have to play it diplomatically, and, of course, it doesn't help when the United States government for decades has favored a strong Turkey and a weak Greece. And I made this a point to the Greek ambassador, to the U.S. ambassador to Greece back in November of 2008 in Athens during the night of the U.S. presidential elections, when I met him for the first time. I'm talking about Daniel Speckard. Daniel Speckard was the former ambassador of the U.S. to Greece. So when I met him that night, I told him straight out, why do you guys harass Greece and favor Turkey? Why do you do things against the best interests of Greece? Greeks haven't hurt anyone, but the Turks are vicious murderers, and, they've committed genocides. And he looked me straight in the eyes and he said the following: what can we do, sir? It's all about politics. This is all for political expediency. We're talking about a very high U.S. official that admitted this to me. Well, it came out later on with WikiLeaks' leaks about Greece, that basically Daniel Speckard, at that very time, the time that I was talking with him, was secretly forging a plan with the socialists in Greece, namely with George Papandreou, to overthrow the then Greek government of the conservative leader Kostas Karamanlis, and install a government that would bow down to the U.S. and Israel. Because, as we know, Kostas Karamanlis didn't want to bow down to the U.S. and Israel, and he wanted to have stronger relations with Russia, etc., etc. It's a huge issue, but I've covered it extensively in recent months in my own reporting for my blog. So, this is John Kountouris from Greek News On Demand, signing out. Go to our website, GreekNewsOnDemand.com, and read all of our English articles. Thank you so much for listening. God bless you, and we'll talk to you next time.
This is JJ